Hello and welcome to the Kent and Medway Medical School Virtual Open Day. We're here to tell you everything you need to know about studying at KMMS. Over the next couple of hours, we're going to be talking to students and staff to get a flavour of the course and of campus. And if you've got questions about the course, campus, admissions, where best to soak up student life, any of those things, you can send those in via the live YouTube and Facebook comments panels, which I've got in front of me. We'll get those answered by our esteemed panellists over the course of this event. Now, obviously, as we're all social distancing and on the line from our various homes, do bear with us if we have any technical hitches. We'll do our very best to sort those out. And if you've got any more personal questions regarding your own admissions situation, you can send those in separately to admissions@kmms.ac.uk. Now, before we hear from our first panel, here's a little taste of KMMS.
Hello, I'm Professor Chris Holland. I'm the founding Dean of Kent and Medway Medical School, and I can't tell you how exciting it is to welcome the pioneer group of medical students to KMMS. Right from the outset of planning your programme, one of the things that we wanted to do was to be innovative, to make sure that we were preparing you to be 21st century medical graduates and practitioners.
My name is Rama Tirunamachandran. I'm Vice Chancellor and Principal of Canterbury Christchurch University, and it's my great pleasure to welcome our founding cohort of Kent and Medway Medical School students, a culmination of 7 years of hard work since I came to Canterbury and set out on a mission to establish a medical school. It was clear to me that Kent was the largest county in the country without its own standalone medical school.
I'm Karen Cox and I'm the Vice Chancellor at the University of Kent, and it is a huge pleasure to welcome our founding students. It's so important for our county, it's so important for our nation that we're generating the next generation of medical doctors.
We've already built a strong community here involving 2 universities, their student unions, the people and citizens of Kent and Medway, as well as the NHS and all the professional groups therein. One of the most important skills for a 21st century doctor is the ability to communicate well with their patients and with the interprofessional team. And here Kent and Medway Medical School has really taken the opportunity to innovate, and we've built the first high-fidelity general practice simulation suite in the county.
Working across the University of Kent and Canterbury Christchurch University and with our NHS partners, we're absolutely delighted that we've got to this point. We've been able to create a medical school for the County of Kent. We've got expertise across being able to deliver clinical learning, scientific expertise. An
important part of the Canterbury Christchurch University contribution is the fact that students will study side by side with 3,000 plus health students who are studying from a range of health disciplines, from nursing, midwifery, physiotherapy, all the way through to allied health professional subjects. Together with the University of Kent's strengths in biomedicine and biomedical sciences and the research strengths, we provide a complementary platform for the medical school to flourish.
2 years ago, when I was appointed as founding Dean for KMMS, I think it's safe to say that none of us expected that the medical school would open under these circumstances. And one of the things that's really helped us have been our values that have really kept us focused on being innovative and brave. As a result, we have one of the most exciting medical student programs in the country. The support, input and advice that we've had from our contingency medical school, Brighton and Sussex Medical School, and of course we couldn't have done this without the support of the NHS across Kent and Medway, who've been invaluable in supporting KMMS over the past 2 years and continuing to do so until our first graduates practice hopefully remaining in Kent and Medway.
One of the ultimate objectives and goals of the medical school is to ensure that we have a positive contribution and impact on the health and well-being of the population of Kent and Medway.
And we're making a real difference every day to people's lives. So thank you very much for the support that we've had already, and we look forward to continued support into the future.
Now I'm delighted to introduce the founding Dean of KMMS, Professor Chris Holland. Chris, I'm going to hand over to you for a short presentation.
If I can have the slides, please. So, hello and welcome everyone to our virtual open day. As you've heard, I'm the founding dean of Kenton Medway Medical School, and this month represents 2 years that I've been in post. I apologize, I may be Zoom bombed by my daughter at the moment. She's promised to be quiet. Next slide, please. So we are a medical school. We're a brand new medical school. And what that means is that our medical degree, which is a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery degree, is in the process of being accredited by the General Medical Council in partnership with our contingency medical school, Brighton and Sussex. Brighton and Sussex, like us, is a partnership between two universities, the University of Brighton and Sussex University. And our medical school is a partnership between Canterbury Christ Church University and the University of Kent. Next slide, please. This is our vision and our mission, and this is really important for us, and we hope that it will resonate with you, because as part of asking for the additional medical school places that allowed us to open our medical school, we had to make a statement about what would be unique about the medical school. We absolutely want our graduates to have received a first-class medical education. We want them to understand and appreciate and be able to incorporate research into their practice. And we also want to be a catalyst for the furthering of healthcare and medical research in the County of Kent. We want our USP. We want people to think that the thing they'll get, especially by coming to us, is an appreciation of person-centered care, which has become critically important in the past few decades and explicitly talked about in medical education and professional practice. Next slide, please. And underpinning our vision and our mission are our values. These are our values, and they have really stood us in good stead through the past 2 years, particularly the past few months with COVID. It takes bravery to open a medical school. Our universities have taken a brave step in asking to be permitted to do so, and I and all members of my team feel that we're doing something brave and innovative in opening a new school. But it also takes bravery to come to a new medical school, and we hope that that's something that means that if you choose to come to us, you'll find like-minded people. Kindness obviously is important to any doctor, any healthcare professional, and we try to be kind to each other as well. We think that role modeling that kindness and respect for each other in our team will stand you in good stead for learning the professional skills required to be a practitioner through most of the 21st century. I can assure you that we are all passionate about our medical school, and we hope to convey that passion to you and make you passionate about becoming the best doctors that you can be. Modern healthcare requires collaboration. I'm an intensive care consultant, and this morning I was actually doing a ward round on my intensive care unit. And on that ward round, I was accompanied by at least 3 other healthcare professionals at all stages of the journey. That collaboration is seamless and elemental to modern healthcare practice. Learning how to collaborate in healthcare in sometimes high stakes and high pressured environments takes time and skill. And one of the things that will stand you in good stead in terms of being a healthcare professional in the 21st century and able to take advantage of all of the opportunities that will be opened to you through whatever your future holds is curiosity. Curiosity gives you the aptitude to ask the questions of the scientists, ask the questions of the patients, and ask the questions of yourself and each other that will allow us to innovate and provide the best care possible to all of our future patients. Next slide, please. So when we set up the medical school, these are some of the specific undertakings that we stated that we would make sure that KMMS achieved. One of the things that we are really, really keen to do is to make sure that people who would not have otherwise even thought of studying medicine or wouldn't have been offered the opportunity to study medicine will have the opportunity to do that by coming to KMMS. Us, KMMS, and the other 4 new medical schools that have been opened across the country in the past few years, we've all been geographically positioned in areas of the country where there are significant health inequalities. For us, Kenton Medway and improving healthcare inequalities in our locale are very important to us. In the context of those health inequalities, we obviously want to make sure that you suffer no detriment at all to your education. And so we are undertaking to ensure that our placements remain high quality at all times. And this is one of the things that the GMC will pay particular attention to during the ongoing accreditation process. And one of the things that we absolutely feel is important, that as more and more care is delivered in primary care and community health, and as more and more of the consequences of mental health conditions become manifest in modern society, we absolutely need to make sure that primary care and mental health are primary to our education. The other thing that we are very focused on is acute medicine, because as we have an older and aging population with chronic healthcare conditions, acute presentations of chronic conditions becomes an increasing part of health service workload. And then the other thing that we need to do is to make sure that in the context of opening a school at the beginning of the 21st century, we need to make sure that we scan the horizons of the future and make sure that our curriculum is fit for purpose for the part of the 21st century that you will be practicing in. Next slide, please. As an example of how well we're doing in this, I'd like to tell you about our pioneer group of medical students who started just over 10 days ago. So we had, for our first intake of 108 students, we had 1,537 applications. And after going through our selection processes, our MMIs, making offers, and all of the other steps involved with offering places to medical students, we've started this year with 103 home EU students and 5 international students. Of that, and entirely typical of modern medical school intakes, 40 and therefore approximately 40% of our intake are male, and 68, round about 65% of our intake was female. 29%, nearly a third of our intake, have come from another degree program, having finished an undergraduate degree. 1 student came to us through an Access to Medicine program, and 37% of our students have arrived having come from what universities call a widening participation background. This is a social background which wouldn't normally be associated with going on to study medicine. And whilst it's not essential that people coming to KMMS come from Kent or Medway, it just gives you an indication of how much resonance we've achieved with the local populations, that 25% of our local intake have come from a Kent or Medway primary domiciled postcode. Next slide, please. So over the past 2 years, what's happened? An awful lot has happened. Water that has gone under the bridge is almost too much to measure. Our waypoints in over the past 2 years and in the future have absolutely been the process of GMC accreditation, and that continues to be on track and will continue until 2025. We have a visit from the GMC in spring of 2021, and they're very much looking forward to meeting our pioneer group of students. We welcomed our first cohort of medical students, and I've given you some idea of the demographics of those, and our students started on the 7th of September. We have a large team of faculty and professional services staff, and that team is growing all the time. We now have 49 members of staff. Many of our academic and clinical staff also work locally within Kent and Medway healthcare settings. The picture in the top left is a picture of me as an ITU consultant during the COVID crisis, and I've mentioned that I was on call in a Kent and Medway hospital this morning. One of the advantages of being part of a medical school that's involved with or supported by 2 universities is that us and you will have the opportunity to engage with academics from across 2 universities across many modules in the program. And we continue to develop that cross-disciplinary working for things like intercalation degrees and year-long projects that you'll undertake in year 4. Next slide, please. These are just some members of the team. This is the senior leadership team. So myself, Dr. Anna Ramito, who's the Deputy Dean and Undergraduate Program Director. You'll be meeting her later on. Stephanie Green, our very experienced school administration manager, Dr. Philip Chan, who's a retired vascular surgeon and is leading on our admissions, and Dr. Scarpa Skueman, lead for assessment, who also works in an A&E department in the county. Next slide, please. And this is just one picture that we took of the whole team. This predates COVID, and the team has continued to grow during the COVID lockdown. So not every member of the current team, we haven't had the opportunity to gather to take a more up-to-date team photo. But this was at one of our GMC meetings, and it was very exciting to get the whole team into the room for this meeting. Next slide, please. You've seen in the welcome video some examples of the physical infrastructure that we're building for our new medical school. Both of our universities have made significant investment in facilities and estates. The STEM building, Science, Technology, Health, Engineering and Medicine at Christchurch, will give you the opportunity to interact on an interprofessional education approach, not just with other health students, but with science, technology and engineering students. This also contains a very significant investment for the county and by the university, Christchurch University, in a very large, high-fidelity, interprofessional hospital-based simulation suite. And this is also where our Anatomy Learning Centre is, where you'll have the opportunity to participate in cadaveric dissection and the teaching and learning of anatomy. Up at the University of Kent, we are very fortunate to have been sponsored by the Pears Foundation. So we have the Pears building at the University of Kent, and that includes 2 dedicated computer labs, a very large, very flexible flat space seminar room, and the first GP high fidelity simulation suite in the county. Next slide, please. These buildings are in the process of being finished off because of lockdown and COVID. They were not ready to be opened on the 7th of September, but we will be moving into the Pears building just before October half term, and the Canterbury Christchurch STEM building will be ready for us in the new year, January 2021. And we're progressing through, for example, processes such as accreditation with the Human Tissue Act Authority to ensure that we're ready to receive our cadavers for cadaveric anatomy teaching. Next slide, please. So I hope that that's given you a brief overview of Kent and Medway Medical School. I hope that Riley hasn't been too distracting through that. Zoom bombing has become a phenomenon of the modern world now. And I hope that you'll enjoy the rest of this morning, and you get the opportunity to ask all of the questions that you'll have about coming to study at Kent and Medway Medical School. Thank you.
Very much, Professor Holland. I thought we'd have one of those viral videos on our hands there. We just about managed to not get one. Here is a short video showcasing the facilities at KMMS. We'll be back shortly. just a little idea there of some of the facilities on offer at KMMS. And if you've got any questions about the facilities or indeed anything else with KMMS, you can send those in via the Facebook and YouTube live comment section on screen, and we're going to get those answered for you over the duration of this event. Our second panel, I'm now joined by Dr. Anna Ramito, the Deputy Dean and Undergraduate Programme Director, and also Dr. Anna Oliveira, the Head of Medical Biosciences. Thank you both very much for joining this morning. I know you got a presentation planned, so I will hand over to whoever would like to begin.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your interest in KMMS. What we're going to do in this next presentation is just give an outline of the programme and explain a little bit about the why and the what and the how, so that you get a better understanding about what your experiences would be like coming to KMMS and studying here. If I could ask you to move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So on to the next one, please. Okay, so I'm going to start off by talking about the why. So first and foremost, as the Dean has already mentioned, we are looking to make sure that we can prepare you really well for your careers in 21st century medicine. What we've got in the programme are all the tenets of something that we think will make you able to be the doctors that you want to be and the doctors that your patients need you to be. We have thought about ways in which we will make sure that you feel that you're able to be your patients' advocates, that you can be their eyes, you can be their ears. We have surveyed local residents in Kent and Medway to understand what it is that they want from their doctors, and we've used this to help inform the particular areas of focus in our programme. Moving on to the next slide, please. The other thing that is an enormous factor in terms of what is in our curriculum is our relationship with the General Medical Council's document Outcome for Graduates, as well as Brighton and Sussex Medical School. The General Medical Council has published a guide of expectations that they would have all medical students at the point of graduation need to have a series of professional values and behaviours, professional skills and professional knowledge. They need to be competent in these areas here in order to satisfy the requirements to graduate and become practicing doctors. We also have a curriculum that's modelled on the Brighton and Sussex Medical School, and whilst we have different modules, we have different delivery, everything that is in our programme is mapped to that already in existence in the medical school there, as part and parcel of the contingency expectations the General Medical Council has of us as a new school. In terms of your assessment, you'll have a variety of different assessment structures throughout the 5 years of your study that will speak specifically to professional values, to skills and to knowledge. An example of this might be with values, that we've got essays, we've got assessments that you do in practice when you've been interacting with patients, you'll be observed, and also having an e-portfolio where we can look at things like your attendance, your engagement, your behaviour in class, and the attitudes and behaviours that have been seen out on practice to get a full sense of whether or not you've been developing the professional values and behaviours that are going to be expected of you when you practice. In terms of skills, some of the ways in which we'll be assessing that will include things like OSCEs, so observing direct interactions that are simulated and representative of what you need to do hands-on when you're working as a doctor, as well as workplace-based assessments. And in terms of knowledge, these will be primarily tested through essays and applied clinical knowledge tests, so written papers with short questions, making sure that you have understood key concepts about medicine and about health and ill health that you need. Next slide, please. So I'd like to talk a bit more now about what it is you're going to learn. So all of the topics that you can see here in the circle that surround you and your learning are what we're referring to as fundamental tracks. So anatomy, biomedicine, physiology, pharmacology, pathology, and so on. These are points of emphasis in your programme that are derived in part from what the General Medical Council has specified, and they are areas that each one of these we think is fundamentally important. So, for example, being particularly good at anatomy is excellent and important, but it can't happen in isolation. We also need to make sure that you have the robust training and competencies in those other areas as well before it would be appropriate that you progress throughout your programme and graduate. Everything that's in your program will be mapped to at least one of these, and there'll be enough of them and a spread of them that will give you those core competences that you need. In the box at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there are additional opportunities for you to dive deeper. So, for example, if you're particularly interested in ethics and law around medicine, there are opportunities where you can use your essays, or you can do particular projects which are called student components, and you can undertake work that would allow you to understand that area better and focus a bit more time on it. Later on in your program, in year 4, you've got a large research project that you can do. And again, these are some of the topics that you might want to focus your project on. There is also the possibility for intercalation. This will be after year 3 in the KMMS program, where again, these topics or other ones that you think will enhance your prospects in your career in medicine, you can look to undertake those on an optional basis. Next slide, please. One of the things that we've also got described in your program is what we're referring to as vertical themes. They will happen at different points throughout your program. They're interwoven throughout your learning. And these are areas that we think will not only make your course more interesting and more robust, but will also help distinguish you as medical graduates. The Dean has mentioned some of the areas that we think we need to emphasize for you so that you have the skills to be the 21st century doctors. And these are examples. So taking one of them, leadership. Doctors are expected to be embracing leadership responsibilities when they're in practice. And we want to make sure that your program prepares you for that. So by having this as a vertical theme, we've got a logical, thought through, systematic way that you can be exposed at different points in your program to learn the concepts that you'll need to then be the effective leaders in healthcare. Next slide, please. This is an overview of your program. This summarizes the different modules that you'll have. So in brackets, you can see that there are credits associated with each module and also an acronym that says L and then a number. This is the level of that module, and your program will take you from level 4 to level 7. These are the descriptors in higher education to explain some of the complexity of what you're learning and also the increasing independence that you'll have with level 7 being higher than level 4. The program is integrated vertically, and by that what we mean is typically activities like placements were reserved more from years 3 onwards, and you would have more campus-based teaching in years 1 and 2. And what we've done with our program is to make sure that you have access to placements early. You have 6 weeks of placement in year 1 and 7 in year 2. And then there's more placements happening in years 3, 4, 5. But what we've done is made sure that through the placements in years 1 and year 2, you've got opportunity to apply in practice and see in practice the concepts that you're learning on campus as well. So you feel that things are really interwoven and make sense. It's also horizontally integrated. And looking at year 1 as an example here, you'll see that some of those modules span the entirety of the box, i.e. they span the entirety of the year, whereas some of them on that bottom line for year 1 will start, stop, and then you move on to something else. What this is intending to show is that you'll have some modules that will continue throughout a year, whilst other ones will just be time bound. And the ones that continue long and thin allow you to develop your concepts while seeing different things. So you'll be seeing different pathologies, you'll be seeing different diseases. And so, for example, the skills that you'll be learning in clinical practice, which is one of the long modules, will change and develop as you are exposed to different types of content. In year 1 and year 2, the majority of your teaching is based on campus, apart from the placements that I've mentioned. And then in year 3, you spend a lot more time out on placement with some teaching on campus to start with. And then some of that teaching continued whilst you're on placement that will be delivered remotely and online. We do plan to have a blended program with online and face-to-face teaching throughout all of your 5 years, giving you some flexibility in terms of how and where you learn, and also reflecting modern ways of higher education and medical training. So you'll see this pattern continue, but in different ratios in a way that we think is going to best support your learning. The big arrow across the middle of this is trying to highlight that everything in your program from day 1, year 1, is trying to get you ready for the point of being the end of year 5, ready to go out on the wards. I mentioned already about the fundamental tracks. So Everything in your program is mapped to a fundamental track. Everything in your program is mapped to one of the General Medical Council's outcomes for graduates. The General Medical Council sets an exam at the end of Year 5 called the Medical Licensing Exam, where you're learning about topics and diseases in your program. They are also mapped to the list that the General Medical Council outcome provides us. So with that, you can have the confidence that what is in your program is relevant and it's all progressively taking you to the goal where we feel that you need to be, so that you feel ready to then go out on the wards after Year 5. Next slide, please. In terms of how you'll learn, there are different learning styles that your program will ask of you. There'll be some learning activities that will be about knowledge acquisition, things that we just need to know, and they'll be delivered in a way that allows you to do that, for example, lectures. There'll be areas where you'll be expected through inquiry, be given a problem or a scenario that you'll be expected to then do some research around and understand, and that process of inquiry will be how you'll be developing your learning. There'll be times whereby you'll be collaborating with peers, and as a group, you'll be then coming together, and that will then inform what it is that you've got to learn. You have own discussions, you can bounce ideas off each other and better understand through that other people's and your own values and attitudes that you have towards particular scenarios that you'll be seeing. You'll be going out in practice, you have opportunity to apply your skills both in the simulation and in the practice setting. And you'll be producing things, you'll be making things. A simple example of that might be, for example, producing a poster. So some of our assessment modes, we are making sure that you are, through those, developing skills that you'll need when you're a doctor. So being able to present, for example, at conferences would be one of them. Knowing how to prepare a poster would be part and parcel of that. So you'll be making something as part of your program that will help you learn what it means to do that. In the bigger circle you can see on this slide here are some of the different examples of the types of way that we'll be delivering your teaching. So you could have some lectures, have some placements, some hands-on practicals, simulations, and so on. Scattered around this slide here on the further outside, you'll see that there are lots of different ways in which that learning might take place. Some will be online, some will be on placements, some will be on campus, and there'll be a variety of large group and then independent study as well. And that we feel by having this constellation that we're able to tap into the benefits of each of these and align them with what you need to be learning, so that you then get a really rich, varied program that will help support you be engaged in learning what it is that we need to be covering here. Can we move to the next slide, please? On this slide here, what I'm describing is your experience that might happen, and I've used Year 1 modules as an example. In Year 1, you're studying 4 modules at any one time. And like I mentioned earlier on, some of them span the year, some of them start and stop. When you're studying the 4 modules at any one time, it's entirely possible that within a week or within a couple of weeks, and occasionally on the same day, you'll have learning activities that might relate to more than one module. So, for example, you might have a learning activity that relates to skills in clinical practice, for example, communication skills. Then you might have a learning activity that relates to your module Heart, Lung and Blood that would talk about some of the pathologies or presentations that you might get of somebody who's got a problem with their heart or their cardiovascular system. You then might have some learning activity related to person-centered care. What does that mean to that person? What is the impact of them having a diagnosis that you've learnt about under Heart, Lung and Blood? You then have opportunity to have your student selected components. So for example, this academic year, that's happening on Wednesdays in term 2, where you'd have specific time to do your student selected component, which is your project. You'd be looking deeper into a particular area of interest. And then a subsequent day, you might then go out on placement under the module Community and Primary Care and Practice and meet patients who've had cardiovascular system problems, examine them, find out their life stories, and so on. And then you might go back to a module that you've been on before and pick up the next skill or the next task and take it forward, and the cycle continues. This may look on paper like you're hopping around, which is the picture of the bunny. You're going from one thing to another to another. However, what we're doing here, this is deliberate, this is intentional, and it's trying to build a matrix. It's trying to make interconnected pockets of learning all come together so that you're learning things in a logical way and you can progressively build a really good understanding of all the different aspects that you'll need to be the doctors that you want to be. Can we move to the next slide, please? One of the things that are really important to stress here is about how you're learning in terms of the learning community that you're joining. The Dean has already mentioned about some of the KMMS values that we've described that are really important to us. We are setting up a culture that is supportive, that is inclusive, and that in turn is important to helping you learn here. As a new school, we are actively recruiting staff. Staff are coming in to teach for KMMS because they're extremely passionate about doing so. They've actively come to do so. And through that, we really hope that you're going to be learning with motivated, enthusiastic, passionate staff who make you feel supported. Next slide, please. And just before I finish off here, one of the things I wanted to come back to was about not knowing. And the Dean mentioned about one of the values being curiosity as a value. And not knowing is a catalyst for being curious and then wanting to find out more. So there will be times where not knowing is something that actually we welcome in your program, so that it then inspires you to go off and learn the area that you didn't understand. The other thing that he mentioned is about the need to study acute medicine. Patients present at times with lack of clarity about what's going on. I clinically am a GP, and the majority of my consultations will be with people coming on in with symptoms, with a story, and it's up to me to try and understand what it is. There'll be some people who come on and they know their condition, they've come on into a review of a chronic condition, but a lot of the time there'll be uncertainty about what's going on, and it's part of my job to unpick that. We want to make sure that you feel well equipped to have the skills to be able to manage that uncertainty. We have certainty that you'll meet uncertainty, and we want you to feel that that's going to be okay and you're going to know how to do that. We're not going to be able to cover all the different stories and presentations that people will come in with, but what we want to do is to give you the foundations to know what to do when you don't know. And I'm going to stop there so that we've got good time for your questions. And also Dr. Anna Oliveira, as you know, is in this call with me. So as head of year one, she'll be able to give more detail about some of the logistical arrangements or practicalities about year one. And I think we're both very happy to take your questions here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Amito. And of course, thanks to you all at home for watching. And we've got people tuning in from all across the UK, Sheffield, Swindon, Plymouth, all the way over to Northern Ireland as well. And of course, we've also got a strong local contingent watching in Sittingbourne and Medway as well. So thank you all very much for watching, and do send in your questions via YouTube and Facebook in the live comments section, and we can get those answered over the course of the rest of the event. Dr. Oliveira, we got a question in from Babire. She's asked, could an area of psychiatry be a SSC?
Thank you. Yes, of course, it depends. Then the level might be different if it's a year one student selected component or year two, but actually that could be an area that can be expanded in a student selected component, absolutely. Any of the areas that Dr. Ramito talked about during the either the vertical themes, but especially the fundamental tracks, could be a good point to have a student selected component, and it would be pitched at the right level of year one, then year two, depending what the level of the student is. Absolutely. Thank you.
We've, Dr. Oliveira, another question, this time from Kian. He's asked, he's just wanted to know whether dissections are on human anatomy. And I think there's another question we've got that's asking, do you teach anatomy using dissection or prosection?
Thank you. Yes, our anatomy will be taught by lectures, also, of course, the theoretical principles, but then the practicals will be on dissection and, yes, human anatomy. I think our dean mentioned when talking about the buildings, that building on the Canterbury Christ Church campus, that's where the dissection will happen. But we'll also have practicals on surface anatomy, so we call it living anatomy. So it will be both of this. There will be also some prosections, so it will be a group of dissection, prosection, surface anatomy. That's how they will be taught in terms of anatomy, but all with human anatomy, yes.
Obviously fascinating and something for those students to look forward to. Dr. Ramito, we've also had a question regarding the staff that make up KMMS. The question being, many of the faculty are also practicing in the NHS. What does that bring to the curriculum and the course?
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, that's correct. A number of our clinical educators are actively in practice. For a start, one of the things that it does, it brings clinicians to an area in the country where more clinicians are needed. So we are in turn supporting our community through not only at medical school, but also in terms of our clinical practice. The other thing is that I think it helps make sure that the content of the program stays very grounded and very relevant. So you've got clinicians who are at the front line, they're experiencing the reality of the NHS and of healthcare, and can bring into their teaching examples of that, but also make sure that their teaching continues to stay aligned with what that practice looks like. So we are very realistic in terms of the ask of the students. I think that's probably the key thing that I would say. And I think there are lots of parallels to be drawn in terms of being a good teacher and being a good clinician. And again, working with patients and making sure that you're communicating in a way and you'll feel that you're in partnership with your patients is something that we also want to do with our students as well. So we'll have some of our clinician educators are able to bring some of their transferable skills that they need for their clinical practice also into the classroom in terms of making sure that it's a supportive environment where students can understand new concepts and work together, which is the reality of what's happening in medicine as well. You're working in partnership with your patient.
And Dr. Ramito, a little bit there about the faculty. We've also had a question about the teaching style of that faculty. Is it more PBL or more lecture-based?
So for our knowledge acquisition, it's primarily lecture-based. There'll be some case-based learning involved as well, but it is a primarily lecture-based program. To be clear, what we mean by lectures is that there's information delivery happening by an individual or individuals. In terms of whether things are lectures in a more traditional sense, whereby the whole cohort sits in a room at any one time, that's something that we've got flexibility on. We'll be aware that a number of lecture-based activities across the country at the moment are being delivered in different ways. And we always plan to do that. We want to make sure that that style of information is flexible. So we always plan to have some of our lectures delivered online, have some of them more as sort of podcast type pieces of material, so that students can learn that same material in a way that makes the most sense for them.
I think that's something really important to get across, obviously, as you mentioned, in this day and age, to show that there was that contingency there already and that flexibility. So obviously for these prospective students, that's good to know. Dr. Oliveira, a question about OSCEs. Can you resit OSCEs? And maybe for anybody who's just tuning in now, what is an OSCE?
So an OSCE is where exactly your skills will probably be examined. So that's where Dr. Ramito mentioned, you have your acquisition of knowledge, the theoretical concepts, but you'll be learning skills. You'll be learning how to take in history, how to communicate with patients, how to examine, so principles of examination side by side with your system-based modules. And exactly those skills that can be tested on an OSCE. So it will be different stations where the students will be testing in their skills. And the students will have preparation for that OSCE. Sorry, I did forget to mention that they are observed structured clinical examinations. I forgot to mention that that's an abbreviation. And the students will be prepared for those OSCEs, so they will have a formative OSCE that will help them, to understand what is the setting of the exam. So it's not a surprise, and then it's only by the end of the year that then will have that summative component that will determine if they will pass or fail. So there are situations where they can get some support and be supported in order to pass those examinations. Absolutely.
Also, Dr. Oliveira, a question about placements. Obviously, a key part of the course. Is it known yet at this stage where those placements will be taken for the 2021 cohort?
Thank you. I do think my my colleague Dr. Mito wanted to add something on the previous question. Do you want to speak on that first before we answer this question?
Thank you very much. Just to add, if I might, come to the previous question, and I'm happy then to continue to the rest of this question as well. So with regards to the OSCEs, what we have in our assessment structures, we've got what's called sequential testing. So students will, for the vast majority of their OSCEs and written applied knowledge test exams, with the exception of ones at the very end of year 5, have an opportunity to sit at what we're referring to as the part 1 and the part 2. So they'll do an OSCE circuit, and their performance may then be so certain that they are able to pass that they then don't need to repeat a second part. But for those where there's less certainty about that conclusion, they have the opportunity to do a further circuit to be able to then inform their total score there. So we've got a sequential testing model across a number of assessments here. With regards to the placement for year 1 students for this incoming cohort now, those are going to be scoped out as of the course of the next few months here. So we've got a number of general practices signed up, which are arranged in primary care network already in for year 1 students at the moment. There'll be some of those we'll also be using for the subsequent iteration, and so this incoming cohort here. But we were very lucky that we've had a huge amount of interest across the region from general practices that want to be able to take our students on placement. So we'll be looking also to expand that cohort of practice placement providers.
Absolutely, and sorry to have missed your interjection there. As I said, we're all obviously on the line from our various homes in this this new normal with remoting in and stuff. So sorry for missing you there, Dr. Amito. Another question for you, Dr. Amito. Obviously, the skills that are given to the students mean they can, they can navigate the medical industry, and I'm sure there'll be some that go off into ICU, some that go off to into GP practices, and so on and so forth. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because I believe you are a GP, and what is it about that area that that really attracted you to being a GP?
Thank you for giving me a forum to talk about it. But I'll be mindful of the time, and I'll try and stay on track because we could be here for ages otherwise. So general practice, I would strongly recommend this if this sort of appeals. I think one of the things that's great about general practice is the actual word. It's general practice. So for those of you who like the idea that you look after people before they're even born, and you could look after them until the very end of their life, and any aspect within that. So you could look after them for issues relating to toenails, to hair, to skin, to emotional problems, to mental health, to cardiovascular problems, and so on. The list is endless. You cover all types of people, all types of stages of life, all types of social situations in which they might be living and working, and all of diseases as well. So I think if you like breadth and variety, then I think it's an excellent career. There is also the opportunity within that you then can deep dive if there's a particular interest, for example, women's health, pediatrics, or dermatology. There are times and opportunities available within primary care that you can then explore those in more detail. So I think it really is a generalist approach. There'll be some who might find that the lack of kind of going deeper to any one thing might not appeal to them, and they would want to have more opportunity to become expert in a particular area and exclusively on that. But that's again why, as part of our program, we're going to make sure that you feel that you can ask the questions and get the exposure you need to a variety of different disciplines and use it to inform your choice. You might be aware that the area in particular is looking for more practitioners in primary care and in mental health, as well as acute medicine. And these will be things that we will want to make sure that you get really good exposure to as part of your program, so that you can then make informed choices to go into those disciplines if they speak to you.
Absolutely, a real breadth of options there for students. Dr. Amito and Dr. Oliveira, thank you very much for answering those questions. And of course, you can keep sending those in over the course of this event on YouTube and on Facebook. If you've got more personal questions regarding your own entry requirement status, you can go to admissions@kmms.ac.uk and send those in via that way. We're going to be talking about admissions just after this short break.
I applied to KMMS for a number of reasons. The first reason for me, as a graduate, KMMS looked at me overall. They took into account my personal experience, my qualifications and my score, and put them together to give me the opportunity to study medicine with them. Secondly, I feel that being part of a new medical school is something that really excites me. Being provided the opportunity to be part of that first cohort, drive a new, innovative and forward-thinking medical school, combining that with research, technology, innovation, I think is something really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to studying medicine at KMMS in 2020.
I chose Kent and Medway Medical School because I was impressed that they had such a high focus on student well-being and support, and I was excited that I would be able to partake in placements in the local community, and that one day I would be able to contribute to Canterbury and East Kent as a medic when I graduate.
Hi everyone, my name is Neha and I'm a graduate student starting at Kent and Medway Medical School in September 2020. I chose KMMS for several reasons, but mainly because as a graduate I will benefit from the clinical placement offered from the first semester. I also really appreciate the outreach programs that KMMS offer. Along with the other students, we'll be able to encourage sixth formers to study medicine at KMMS in the future.
I truly believe and trust that this school will shape me into the doctor that I want to be, thanks to the values they promote and the importance of patient interaction within the curriculum, and also the wide range of support offered by the school. Moreover, as a student coming to the UK from France, it was important for me to choose a school that wouldn't make it too difficult for me to get back home, and from the beautiful city of Canterbury, I think I will have achieved that.
The reason why I applied was KMS was new, meaning that they could take the old and mix it with a bit of the new. And that really was apparent to me when I went to the applicant day, because they really talked about the demands of the NHS now as a doctor and what it may look like in the future and how they want their KMMS graduates to be prepared for that. Also, when I went to the interview and the applicant day, I really just saw how much people actually wanted you to succeed and do your best and cared about you from the beginning, and that's why I chose KMMS.
I knew I wanted to go to a place that would make me the best doctor possible, so I spent a lot of time researching different medical schools, and the things that I was looking for initially were an integrated course. I just think that's the best way to learn, it makes sense, dissection and a nice city. So Canterbury had all of those, so I went to an open day to see what it was all about, and I just got a really good feeling that was so supportive and caring. I guess it's hard to gauge online, but it was different to other medical schools in that way.
I applied to KMMS for a number of reasons. The first reason for me, as a graduate, KMMS looked at me overall. They took into account my personal experience, my qualifications and my score, and put them together to give me the opportunity to study medicine with them. Secondly, I feel that being part of a new medical school is something that really excites me. being provided the opportunity to be part of that first cohort, drive a new, innovative and forward-thinking medical school, combining that with research, technology, innovation, I think is something really, really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to studying medicine at KMMS in 2020.
I chose Kent and Medway Medical School because I was impressed that they had such a high focus on student well-being and support, and I was excited that I would be able to partake in placements in the local community, and that one day I would be able to contribute to Canterbury and East Kent as a medic when I graduate.
Hi everyone, my name is Neha and I'm a graduate student starting at Kent and Medway Medical School in September 2020. I chose KMMS for several reasons, but mainly because as a graduate I will benefit from the clinical placement offered from the first semester. I also really appreciate the outreach programs that KMMS offer. Along with the other students, we'll be able to encourage sixth formers to study medicine at KMMS in the future.
I truly believe and trust that this school will shape me into the doctor that I want to be, thanks to the values they promote and the importance of patient interaction within the curriculum, and also the wide range of support offered by the school. Moreover, as a student coming to the UK from France, it was important for me to choose a school that wouldn't make it too difficult for me to get back home, and from the beautiful city of Canterbury, I think I will have achieved that.
The reason why I applied was KMS was new, meaning that they could take the old and mix it with a bit of the new. And that really was apparent to me when I went to the applicant day, because they really talked about the demands of the NHS now as a doctor and what it may look like in the future and how they want their KMMS graduates to be prepared for that. Also, when I went to the interview and the applicant day, I really just saw how much people actually wanted you to succeed and do your best and cared about you from the beginning, and that's why I chose KMMS.
I knew I wanted to go to a place that would make me the best doctor possible, so I spent a lot of time researching different medical schools, and the things that I was looking for initially were an integrated course. I just think that's the best way to learn, it makes sense. Dissection and a nice city, so Canterbury had all of those, so I went to an open day to see what it was all about, and I just got a really good feeling that was so supportive and caring. I guess it's hard to gauge online, but it was different to other medical schools in that way.
We've now got Dr. Philip Chan on the line, who is the lead for admissions. Dr. Chan, over to you for your presentation.
Thanks very much, Karen. Can I go to my first slide then, please? Thanks very much, Karen. Can I go to my first slide then, please? Thanks very much, Karen. Right. Just want to give you Hello? Hello, did I do something wrong?
Sorry, Phil, we're having a little bit of an audio problem. We're just sorting it out now. We should be back over to you shortly, I think. If you want to continue with your presentation.
Yes, please. If I could have the first slide then, please. Hello? Yeah. Can I give you an introduction then to the general admissions problem? The admissions problem is that there are many more people that want to study medicine than we have places for. And medicine is academically demanding and full of examinations, and so therefore selection leans towards people that do very well in examinations. The problem, though, with that is that in the UK, exam results are focused on schools that do very, very well in examinations, and often that means selective public sector schools and strong private schools. What then happens is that we actually then end up reinforcing inequalities in society with our medical selection. That graph shows the health of the various classes in society, classified by various measures of deprivation. And essentially, at the bottom of the screen, the wealthiest and least deprived parts of the population enjoy the best health. They live longer and they live much healthier than if you are less wealthy and have more deprivation indicators. What that means, therefore, is that we are actually taking away the chances of entering the profession from many potentially strong young people and just reproducing what we see in our unequal society. So next slide, please. So what Kent and Medway Medical School have done is really to look very deeply at this and to see what we can do to change our admissions policy to have an increased amount of fairness in the way that we apply selection. We do use minimum standards. So we outline what our minimum standards are for GCSE and for the UCAT entry test. We do not use any kind of predicted grades at all, not at A level, and we don't even use degree predictions, even though you are in your final year of your degree. We have a standard A-level conditional offer of AAB. This is the lowest offer in the country. We do not offer a discount on this offer, so we don't go any lower than this, apart from our partner schools within Kent, where we go to ABB. Just want to inform you that we don't accept any deferred entries, and we deferred nobody from the A-level chaos of this summer. So we are carrying nobody over from the 2020 group into the 2021 applicant cohort. So anybody applying this year is competing for the full number of 100 places. As far as widening participation and fairness in admissions is concerned, what we've done is to enhance the contextual approach to admissions. And what we've tried to prioritize are applicants who've achieved strong results in challenging schooling and personal contexts. And as this is the final step before interview selection, that's probably the most important. Let me explain our approach to contextualization in the next slide, please. Right, this is really an explanatory slide, but I'd also quite like you to vote, if that's all right. And so if you could vote in the text, I'd be really interested to see. Let's simplify medical school entry to a single exam, which is scored out of 100. And let's say that the medical schools have got together and said that the minimum standard for entry is to score 70 on this exam. But because it's very competitive, most people entering medical school have a score around about 75. You are now the admissions tutor, you're me, and you've got two applicants. Right? On the left, you've got applicant A, and on the right, you've got applicant B. Now, applicant A has a score of 70 on the exam. And applicant B has a score of 75 on the exam. So applicant A does meet the minimum criteria, but applicant B is the one that's closer to the average for the sector. But the context in which they come is that applicant A attends a school which is perhaps not the best or the strongest school, and doesn't offer certain subjects, and also has a big turnover of teachers. So their school average on this exam is only 50. Applicant B, on the other hand, goes to a school which everybody would like to go to, and we would love our children to attend. And everything's good about this school. And it has an average score on the exam of 80. Okay, guys, I want you to now vote. You've only got one place to give. Would you give that to applicant A or to applicant B? And this is a place to give, not for entry, but for interview. I should explain. So applicant A or B, please vote in the text. Now, I can't actually see the text, but hopefully you're voting now. But it's been put to me that the problem with fair admissions is that mostly of us would like to admit applicant A, but the system will admit applicant B, not Kent and Medway's system. So we've actually changed the system so that it actually favours applicant A. So I hope that explains to you what our KMMS attitude and mechanism towards contextualization is. We contextualize everyone by their school context. Next slide, please. So if you're a pre-A level, right, we will look at your GCSE results and we'll compare that to your school average. If you're post A-level, we will look at your A-level results and compare that to your school average. Note again, no predictions. If you are a postgraduate, we did use a scoring system, which does include 1 mark only for Kent education and residence, and 1 mark only for full-time work in the NHS. But this might be supplemented or replaced in 2020-21, that's this application cycle, by an online situational judgment test. So we might still do that, or we might replace that. That's not been clear. We also have a group who we cannot contextualize because there are no GCSEs or their foreign qualifications or school results are not really available. And that's particularly the case for the other countries in the UK. And we will select that the old-fashioned way by looking through the whole application. So therefore, what we've ended up with in the first admission cycle is a shortlisting method that's very friendly to widening participation. And in fact, we've never ever asked anybody whether they meet any WP criteria, which is somewhat of a miracle, really. Okay, next slide, please. So, invitation for interview. We interview rather few students. And in our first year, that was out of necessity because we had rather few staffed in order to interview them. We may interview more students this time around. That hasn't been determined yet. And we use a multiple mini interview. The details are on our website, so please look at that. We are preferring to do this in person, but clearly that's going to depend on the public health situation in January when it's our interview time. And we do have alternative plans for a virtual multiple mini interview. Don't think that's quite as good as the in-person one, but needs must sometimes. Everybody that you ask that's here already will say that the KMMS multiple mini interview is different from all of the others. And most of what you read about MMIs does not apply to KMMS. And so preparation and rehearsal is definitely not required and possibly disadvantageous. That's what we've actually heard from others, that they've prepared for one kind of interview and got a completely different one. So be yourself if you get this far. Could you come to the next slide, please? Our mission really is to select high achieving students in context who have strong commitment to values. And these are, this is a picture of the NHS values, and that's really more or less what we subscribe to. And we find that our students, or we want our students to be motivated and resilient. We test for this and committed to these values. All in all, we just want you to be a fantastic human being. And if you are, then you have nothing to worry about. We are more impressed by what you actually do and what we actually see you do, right, than what you say you would have done or you might have done or what you will do in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm open to any questions. I'd like perhaps in this forum to have general interest questions only that's applicable to the whole interview cohort and whole applicant cohort. Please don't ask me about your individual circumstances. We will arrange a Microsoft Teams meeting with me just after this YouTube and Facebook session, and if you want an appointment for that, just send an email to enquiries@kmms.ac.uk and we will arrange that for you. That'll start at about 12:30 and go on till 2 o'clock or until I can't sit down any longer. So, not many people know about our missions and selection. I've given you an outline about it. There are many websites that totally don't understand us. So see if you can do better, because the entry requirements are published in some detail on our website, and that's the reference for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Chan. And just so you know, the students, when you asked for the survey, unanimously voted for option A. What would you make of them all as part of an admission staff?
I think that's really, really interesting, and thank you very much, students. Let me tell you that I've done this now for several open days and lots of presentations to hospitals, trusts, interviewers, doctors, etc. And And all in that time, there must be maybe, 500, 600 people altogether, maybe more. Right? Only 4 people have ever voted for candidate B. And all of them were medical doctors. And I think all of them were candidate B, frankly. So there we are.
There we are indeed. Now on to some of those questions. Mohammed, who is watching in Birmingham, he's asked, do graduates have a different UCAT cutoff? And can you know what that is?
They didn't last year. They might this year, depending on the profile of the applicant cohort. Very few medical schools will actually publish what their cutoff is before they receive their applications, because the cutoff is used in order, right, to reduce the applicant pool down to a certain number. For us, it's quite a generous number because we go on after the UCAT threshold to contextualize. So last year, our UCAT threshold was at the 40th centile, or 2420 overall. That was not the lowest UCAT threshold in the country, but it was certainly one of the 3 or 4 lowest, that's for sure.
And I know you were talking a little bit about interviews and how they don't, I think you were saying they don't factor it as much as possibly in other degrees as part of the application process. But we have had a question saying, if predictions aren't taken into account, how are applicants shortlisted for an interview?
Applicants are shortlisted through the stages that are outlined in our entry requirements document. Right, so stage 1 is minimum qualifications. Stage 2A is the UCAT threshold. Stage 2B is contextualization. So it's all out there in the document. So you can actually peruse that in detail at your leisure.
And we're getting loads of questions about admissions. We always do, and I know you're going to be coming back a little later on, Dr. Chan. So if we don't get through to them all in this section, we'll obviously come to them a little bit later on. Bernadette Smith, she sent in a question. She's asked, will the intake for 2021 be the same as 2020? Obviously, a lot of a lot of circumstances around that at the moment with the ongoing situation. But an interesting question there. What's the intake going to be like for 2021 compared to the first cohort?
Thanks, Bernadette. I think you clarified that you were talking about numbers. We have 100 home EU places and up to 8 overseas places available for you to apply to. None of them have been promised to candidates from the 2020 cycle. We've deferred nobody, nor have we held over offers for anybody that's taking the autumn series exam. Hope that answers the question. So we have exactly the same numbers that we had last year. We may be one of the very few medical schools in the country that are able to say that.
And is there any is there any weighting towards if you're a Kent and Medway local student? That's a question that Zaka wants to know, if you get maybe more of a preference if you're from the local area.
Thanks, Zaka. There is no preference for Kent and Medway students if you are a pre-A level or a post-A level student. If you are a postgraduate student, there is a small preference, but it's only 1 point on the scoring system from last year. We are at the moment rethinking the scoring system, and we're probably going to put more emphasis on an online test and less on these kinds of scores. The reasoning behind that is that we are here to serve Kent and Medway. Young people are more mobile than people who've already graduated and settled in Kent. So therefore we give a small preference to Kent residents if they are already graduated.
All those people tuning in from across the UK and further afield. Thank you all, obviously, watching at home for doing so. And keep those questions coming in. We've had a couple sent in by Jaya. His first question, or her first question, is how will you take this year pending students with new next year students applying sometime as they're giving exams in October? I guess that kind of question focusing on what you were talking about earlier with deferrals, whether that is taken into account for next year.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Luckily, that's an easy one for me. We deferred nobody, and we carried over no offers from the 2020 group. So therefore, anybody that's from 2020 group sitting exams or applying with you this time is actually exactly taking their chances and the same chance for you. So, so although numbers are up in the sector all round, and numbers of admission of applications are going to go up, we don't have any favors for the 2020 group.
And you mentioned earlier on as well as it's going to look like similar numbers for intake next year. That kind of leads into Jaya's next question, whether that 100 number is finalised, or there's going to be any sort of wiggle room there to maybe take a few more students. And also a question about the new buildings and whether the intake capacity is going to be impacted by the buildings and how many can fit in obviously the ongoing situation.
Yeah, our ideal number is 108, but our existing facilities could easily cope with 125. It is possible that sometime in the future we will expand our numbers, but we hope to do so deliberately rather than as a last-minute sort of fudge to try and deal with increased numbers. I think that we are planning for those numbers next year. So we at the moment are not planning to expand for next year. When you say wiggle room, well, it's a weird admission system we have in the UK based on conditional offer. So actually, every admissions tutor has a little tiny bit of wiggle room, and so for example, this year we admitted 103 home EU students.
And just on the subject, finally, of students and some international intakes as well. Just a final question before we move on. This one from Mohammed Yaqub. He's asked, could you let him know what the limit is on international student intake, and if there is one?
Absolutely. You'll be competing for a separate group of places. We have. Actually, it's 7.5 places for international students, so we'll interpret that as 8. And this year we took 5.
That's good to know. Dr. Chan, thank you very much. We'll be back with you a little later on, but stick around, everyone. We've got some students coming up for you right after this break. And I'm delighted to say we're now joined by some of that first cohort of students, Zavana and Hannah and Adam. All, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Zavana, let's come over to you first. You're coming into the start of your first term at KMMS, a new school. How's it feeling?
Wonderful. There was a warm welcome in Welcome Week, and I was so welcomed by the KMMS team, and I'm so glad to be here. So exciting to get to know everyone, the cohort and the teachers. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic experience, all to look forward to. Hannah, over to you. What attracted you to KMMS through the application process?
It was a lot of things. Initially, the things that made me shortlist it were the course structure, just the integrated way of learning, and the fact that there's lectures and small groups, because you need both. Ideal, Canterbury's a lovely city, but we've also got the countryside on our doorstep and the beaches, and we can get to London really easily. And then also, I just thought it was one of the higher chances of me getting accepted, because you've got to apply strategically. And I think that what KMMS were looking for aligned with what I could offer. And then the thing that made me really firm KMMS was just the feel of it. When I went to the offer holder day, it was just so different. The staff were just so lovely and so supportive. So I got a good feel.
So checking all the boxes there, by the sounds of it, Hannah. Adam, over to you. Tell us a little bit about your journey coming to KMMS.
Yeah, so I took a sort of a detour to get to KMMS and where I am now. At my A levels, I actually had studied triple engineering for 2 years. So, that's not typically the route that you go down when you want to try and end up as a doctor. But while I was on that course, I realized, that's not what I wanted to do. This was something that I sort of had picked off the cuff. And so I actually looked into something called an access course. And what an access course is it's a 1-year course, which sort of gives you almost an equivalent to A levels. You can earn up to 45 distinctions in your graded units. Unfortunately, KMMS was one of the universities that did accept an access course. And so fortunately, I managed to get my offer, which was given to me at about 30 distinctions at 45. And here I am now. It's still quite surreal, but yeah, I took quite a detour, and I'm still here.
And I think it's really important for those watching to know that there's no sort of one route and one avenue to go down in order to apply for KMMS. There's lots of different options there. And I think, Adam, your story kind of says that. Did you feel when applying to KMMS that there was, because you hadn't maybe gone through that more traditional route, there was it was any more discerning? Or did you feel that, one of those reasons that you were attracted to KMMS was because of that more kind of that more open approach?
Yeah, I think obviously once you're going through that process and you realize, oh, this is kind of a different route, you get a little bit worried because you're sort of thinking, is there going to be any form of, oh, well, we can't let him in because he might not have the grades or etc. But I didn't feel like that at all with KMMS. And as soon as I'd applied and, sent my email over to say, hey, I'm applying as an access student, these aren't going to be A-level results that I'm receiving, and asked sort of what was the avenue that I would have to go down, they were very informative with me and sort of explained how things were going to go, what they expected in terms of grades, asked me about my units that I would be doing on my access course, and just to make sure, it was going to fit in with their requirements. And so I did feel almost like I was being supported as well as everyone else that would have done A levels.
And Hannah, what about for you? What was your journey to get to KMMS?
So, I applied after doing A levels. I would have done A levels just this summer. To be honest, I didn't think I would get into medicine for quite a long time of my life. All through secondary school, I was always thinking in the back of my mind, it's what I want to do. But I probably won't get in. But then I got to A levels and I was like, no, it's the only thing that I want to do. So I've got to just at least try. So I applied. Typical A level student really. And I was fortunate to get a place.
And we're going to come on to some questions being sent in just a second. Obviously, you can, watching at home, you can send in those via the YouTube and Facebook live comments panels, whether those questions about the application process for our current cohort that we've got on screen now, or whether or anything about Kent and Medway, the place, will come on to those. But Savannah, just finally with you, tell us a little bit about your journey and see how we've obviously had two very different journeys so far.
So I'm a gap year student, so I wasn't lucky to get into medicine the first time around, but I did take a gap year and I applied to KMMS and I managed to get in. And what initially attracted to me to KMS was the cohort was around 100 students, so there's plenty of focus on well-being of student and a lot of student support within KMMS, as well as both universities. And also being a small cohort makes it easier to get to know everyone in your course. And it's starting to feel like a big family as I get to know everyone now. And secondly, KMMS is very patient-centered in their approach. Right from the start, you will be introduced to patient-centered practice. And being an integrated course, your learning areas will complement with each other. And overall, this was important to me as I wanted to know the best, as I wanted to provide the best quality care to my patients in my professional years to come.
Absolutely, and like you said there's a lot to look forward to on the course, and we'll kind of come into that in just a sec. Hannah, over to you next. So you were talking about obviously there were lots of ticks next to KMMS for you, and one of those was the place itself. What was it? What is it that you're most looking forward to about making the most of Kent and Medway, the place?
Oh, it's always exciting to be able to explore a new place. So just exploring the city. We've gone on a bike ride. We've had a barbecue at the beach. Just going for walks. Everything, it has everything going for it, really. It's a lovely feel. And I mean, for me, I've always thought I'd travel really far from home, you know, get away from home. But actually, I'm not that far from home, and it's actually quite a nice thing.
Absolutely, get a bit of best of both worlds there. Adam, over to you. We heard Savannah talking a little bit about the makeup of the course. What are you looking forward to most, Adam, about maybe the modules or about the work experiences? What is it that you're excited to start doing?
Oh, definitely placements, 100% the placements. I think, you know, being able to study and learn about what it is you're going to be doing in practice is always, it's mandatory, it's always good. But then when you put those skills into practice and you go to placements and you see it being put into practice, it really sort of cements that knowledge for you. And so I think personally, placements is the best way for me to learn. And so it would be silly of me to not pick placements as the thing I'm most excited to experience, see, be a part of, really.
And we've got a few questions coming in about accommodation and living on campus. And before we come on to those, Savannah, you were talking a bit about Welcome Week and some of those activities. I think a lot of prospective students watching today will be obviously a bit conscious of what that is going to look like for them. We're in a very different situation now to maybe more traditional academic years and traditional activities. How have you found the Welcome Week for you?
My advice to students is rest assured, everything will be planned. We were given a timetable which had all the sessions we needed to go on to. And with the whole idea of COVID, we were split into two different groups, and there was a lot of safety measures to make sure that we would remain safe. And with the introductory week, I found it really useful because there was a lot of introduction into modules and also contacts from lecturers and support teams. The emails and as well as numbers were provided to us, and that is also uploaded into our system in Blackboard, so we can always rewatch our the pre-recorded videos and the recorded lectures to recap the information that we might have missed. So rest assured, everything is organized in Welcome Week.
That'd be very good for those watching. And of course, we heard Dr. Amito earlier on talking about there's always been that idea to have that kind of blended learning approach with KMMS. And if you're just tuning in now and you missed any of the earlier sections of the virtual open day, this link will still be live after we've finished, and you can catch up with that at a later date. Now on to some more of the questions. Adam, we've had one sent in asking, was the Access to Medicine course that you successfully applied with, was that via distance learning or was that a full-time course?
So that was a full-time course. As I mentioned, it was the duration of a year, and I was in 4 days a week, and I did mine in Essex near Harlow. But it was a full-time course, 1 year, and I was in about 4 days a week.
Thank you very much to Cam Medhurst for sending in that question. Hannah, a question for you about accommodation. I'm not sure what your situation is or where you're going to be based, but we've had a question about, are first-year students guaranteed a place on campus?
As far as I know, yes, that's what we were told. Yeah, there's a deadline, so as long as you get it in before the deadline, I'm pretty sure you're guaranteed a place. I think everyone that has applied by the deadline got a place, and yeah, the accommodation's really nice.
What is your describe for us your accommodation? What's it called? Where are you based? What's the proximity like to where you're going to be taking those lectures?
So I'm in Parkwood. I think we're all in Parkwood here. Adam and I are in the houses and Z's in the flats. So the houses aren't en suite, but they're all really lovely. It's a really nice feeling. So we're on the Kent campus, and we're just surrounded by lots of other little houses and trees, and yeah, it's a nice community. And the medical school is just down the road, so it's a good place in terms of that. And there's buses that go to the city centre right from our door, really. And there's a bar just opposite where we're staying, and a co-op, and it's got everything you need, especially for the first year because it's very sociable.
Yeah, of course. You said everything you need with a bar, of course. Adam, about the accommodation, as well. Hannah's saying that you're all in close proximity. Have you had a chance to meet some of your new flatmates yet? And what's that kind of what's the atmosphere like on campus at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite good friends with my flatmates. We've all met each other. Obviously, with the rules that are going on with everything, we've got to be a little bit careful with socialising outside the household. So we've had plenty of time to get to know each other. You know, whenever you get into a flat in KMMS or accommodation, whether it be at Petrus Court, which is at Canterbury Christ Church, or on the Kent Uni, it should be that all of your roommates are also medical students as well, which really does help because, as you can imagine, if you're mixed with other students as well, you've got longer terms, you've got slightly more difficult work to an extent. So you're going to be having your head down quite a lot, and you'll want other people with you that can either assist you with that or respect that sort of that time frame. So the roommates that we've got, I think we can all agree, are absolutely fantastic. We're all very, very good friends with each other, and even outside of our housing, everyone on the course is very friendly, amazing people, and we all get along very well, actually. Yeah.
A really tight-knit bunch already by the sounds of it. Adam, you seem to be our go-to learning course expert here. We've had another question coming in from Joe. He said, I'm studying an Access to Learning distance course. My GCSE grades are up to scratch. Do you have any other advice for improving my chances of acceptance when it comes to my application, i.e. relevant experience and that sort of thing?
That's a good question. I think it's always good to have, you know, relevant experience within healthcare of some sort, whether it's been working in a elderly person's home or working with working in care in general, visiting houses and looking after people who are in care. So that's always one good thing when you're applying to a med school. It's always good to have that experience. And then another thing as well is obviously to really show in your UCAT that you are someone who's got that sort of clinical mind, because obviously our UCATs, although some universities don't look at it as critically as others, it's always good. It's always better to say, I've got this score of UCAT over, this score, or I've got this much higher than the average. And, it makes you stand out a little bit more to say, yeah, I've got quite a high UCAT score and I've got this experience, and it can make your application have a bit more weight, my knowledge.
Absolutely. We're just about coming to the end of this panel. Sivanan, just a final word from you. Obviously, talking about the going into being this first cohort, and it's already seems to be a pleasant experience for you so early on. What advice would you have for those prospective students watching who might be thinking, maybe I should defer until the situation calms down, or maybe umming and ahhing about whether or not to come to KMMS? What would what would you say to them?
Right. With the whole situation going around, KMMS is doing their best to protect us students, our health and well-being. So I would say rest assured, they're doing their best and they'll keep us safe. With considering to apply to KMMS, I would say definitely go to an open day or virtual open day, and always engage and ask questions as you are doing now, and try and see if KMMS suits you, and definitely do a lot of research around where you want to apply. And with KMMS, they want to know who you are. They want to know the person you are. So that would, for medical interviews, just come prepared. But in the end, they want to know the person you are. So that's that's the advice I would give to future students.
Fantastic advice. Sivanan, Hannah and Adam, thank you all very much for joining today, and good luck with the rest of the start of term and, of course, your first year. All the best with that. More from the KMMS Virtual Open Day coming right up.
I think the most memorable thing for me was the talk from the Dean, Chris Holland. So he was talking about how he started his medical journey and the type of doctor he is, and sort of encouraging us to start thinking about how we want our careers to go. And it was really memorable sort of to see it from his point of view when he started his medical journey, for us to be at the same level and how he was talking about his start.
I think it's being a founding student and being welcomed into the community as a first year med student is really exciting.
Definitely receiving iPads. I don't think many other medical schools do that, which is really, really cool. And the way that the dean explained it as internet poverty or digital poverty, and how KMMS is combating that was just really amazing.
Most memorable, probably, not gonna lie, getting the lanyards is quite exciting. Seeing the medical student thing, finally it's happened.
I think it's Dr. Schoeman's lecture, to be honest. It was funny, it was informative, it was more than what I expected.
Getting the iPads.
The most memorable thing is finally being in a lecture theatre and meeting all the teachers and just meeting everyone and moving in. That's been great.
I think finally moving into my flat and also having my own room. It's also quite refreshing being in a lecture hall full of so many different people. Yeah, it's been very fun.
My most memorable thing was going to meet those new people.
I think it's the new sense of independence that we've been having.
It's definitely meeting new people and just embarking a new journey, and it's all getting real. So just being part of something I've always wanted to be, so I'm just very excited.
Probably seeing the wildlife. I'm just not used to seeing rabbits just wandering around the streets, because I'm mainly from the city, so it's just all new to me. But yeah, That's probably it. I think seeing this building, because it makes it all real to me that I'm actually coming to KMMS as a medical school, and also becoming a doctor as well.
I'm probably moving into a new city, like a new area. I'm not from Canterbury or Kent, so I'm really excited to just be in a new environment, to learn new people.
The introduction by the dean, I think, that was quite early on and explosive, really. It was a lot of energy coming at us all at once.
I think it was definitely meeting everyone's kind of little memorable experiences, but kind of all put in one, meeting everyone, all the staff, and kind of seeing how friendly everyone is. I saw Mary again. I met her at the first open day, the very first one. So it's nice to have someone familiar there, kind of helping me ground myself and get into everything.
I think the most memorable thing for me was the talk from the Dean, Chris Holland. So he was talking about how he started his medical journey and the type of doctor he is, and sort of encouraging us to start thinking about how we want our careers to go. And it was really memorable sort of to see it from his point of view when he started his medical journey, for us to be at the same level and how he was talking about his stuff.
I think it's being a founding student and being welcomed into the community as a first year med student is really exciting.
Definitely receiving iPads. I don't think many other medical schools do that, which is really cool. And like the way that the dean explained it as internet poverty or digital poverty, and how KMMS is combating that, was just really amazing. Most memorable, probably, not gonna lie, getting the lanyards was quite exciting. Seeing the medical student thing, like finally it's happened.
I think it's Dr. Screwman's lecture, to be honest. It was funny, it was informative, it was more than what I expected.
Getting the iPads.
The most memorable thing is finally being in a lecture theatre and meeting all the teachers and just meeting everyone and moving in. That's been great.
I think finally moving into my flat and also having my own room. It's also quite refreshing being in a lecture hall full of so many different people. Yeah, it's been very fun.
My most memorable thing was going to meet those new people.
I think it's the new sense of independence that we've been having.
It's definitely meeting new people and just embarking a new journey, and it's all getting real. So just being part of something I've always wanted to be. So I'm just very excited.
Probably seeing the wildlife. Like, I'm just not used to seeing rabbits just wandering around the streets, because I'm mainly from the city, so it's just all new to me. But yeah, that's probably it. I think seeing this building, because it makes it all real to me that I'm actually coming to KMMS as a medical school, and also becoming a doctor as well.
I'm probably moving into a new city, like a new area. I'm not from Canterbury or Kent, so I'm really excited to just be in a new environment, to learn new people.
The introduction by the dean, I think, that was quite early on and explosive, really. It was a lot of energy coming at us all at once.
I think it was definitely meeting everyone's kind of little memorable experiences, but kind of all put in one, meeting everyone, all the staff, and kind of seeing how friendly everyone is. I saw Mary again. I met her at the first open day, the very first one. So it's nice to have someone familiar there, kind of helping me ground myself and get into everything.
Welcome back to the KMMS Virtual Open Day. To tell us a little bit more about student support, wellbeing and general life on campus, I'm joined now by Dr. Julia Hines, who's the lead for medical law, ethics and professionalism. And a little later on, we're going to have Stephanie Green, the school's administration manager, who'll be answering questions. Do keep those questions coming in on the Facebook and YouTube live comment sections. We've had some great ones coming in so far, and we'll look to get those answered for you over the rest of this event. I shall hand over to you now, Julia, for a short presentation, and remember to keep those questions coming in. Julia, over to you.
I'm going to talk to you today about student life and well-being. So at our medical school, we are dedicated to providing a very high level of pastoral care. And this is because we believe that a safe and pleasant learning environment will encourage you to develop all your talents and abilities and, in essence, be yourself. and we want to aid you in that journey to be yourself. So what is the thing that you would like your medical school to offer? That's what I want you to ask yourself when you're considering different options. Is it strong academic support, peer support, extra lessons, extra sessions, lots of fun in societies, personal support, well-being support? Yes? Should I begin? Okay, I've actually got in the background, I have background noise.
Sorry, Julia. We seem to be having a few technical issues we're going to sort out, and we'll be on the line to you shortly to try and sort this out. We've got a short video to play for you. Do stay with us. We'll be back in a few moments' time.
Okay, thank you.
I applied to KMMS for a number of reasons. The first reason for me, as a graduate, KMMS looked at me overall. They took into account my personal experience, my qualifications and my score, and put them together to give me the opportunity to study medicine with them. Secondly, I feel that being part of a new medical school is something that really excites me. And being provided with the opportunity to be part of that first cohort, drive a new, innovative and forward-thinking medical school, combining that with research, technology, innovation, I think is something really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to studying medicine at KMMS in 2020.
I chose Kent Medway Medical School because I was impressed that they had such a high focus on student well-being and support, and I was excited that I would be able to partake in placements in the local community, and that one day I would be able to contribute to Canterbury and East Kent as a medic when I graduate.
Hi everyone, my name is Neha and I'm a graduate student starting at Kent and Medway Medical School in September 2020. I chose KMMS for several reasons, but mainly because as a graduate I will benefit from the clinical placement offered from the first semester. I also really appreciate the outreach programs that KMMS offer. Along with the other students, we'll be able to encourage sixth formers to study medicine at KMMS in the future.
I truly believe and trust that this school will shape me into the doctor that I want to be, thanks to the values they promote and the importance of patient interaction within the curriculum, and also the wide range of support offered by the school. Moreover, as a student coming to the UK from France, it was important for me to choose a school that wouldn't make it too difficult for me to get back home, and from the beautiful city of Canterbury, I think I will have achieved that.
The reason why I applied was KMS was new, meaning that they could take the old and mix it with a bit of the new. And that really was apparent to me when I went to the applicant day, because they really talked about the demands of the NHS now as a doctor and what it may look like in the future and how they want their KMMS graduates to be prepared for that. Also, when I went to the interview and the applicant day, I really just saw how much people actually wanted you to succeed and do your best and cared about you from the beginning, and that's why I chose KMMS.
I knew I wanted to go to a place that would make me the best doctor possible, so I spent a lot of time researching different medical schools, and the things that I was looking for initially were an integrated course. I just think that's the best way to learn, it makes sense. Dissection and a nice city, so Canterbury had all of those, so I went to an open day to see what it was all about, and I just got a really good feeling that was so supportive and caring. I guess it's hard to gauge online, but it was different to other medical schools in that way.
Stephanie Green, the school's administration manager, joins us now to tell us a little bit about support, well-being and life at the KMMS. So Stephanie, I'm going to hand over to you for a short presentation, and of course thanks to you all for tuning in at home. Thanks for bearing with us as we sorted out those technical issues. Obviously we're all remoting in from our various homes and still getting used to this new normal, so thank you very much for that. Stephanie, over to you.
Hello everybody, lovely to see you and really happy you can join us today. I was particularly excited to see all of those comments from our current students who we just met last week. Lovely to hear that they say that we're supportive, that we're caring, and we want them to succeed, because that is actually what we've planned, and it's happy that I'm really happy that that's come across. I'm going to show you a couple of word clouds here. This is what we asked students when they came to our open days, and we could see how important, you can see here, support is. People were concerned to make sure they had appropriate support when they came to the medical school. Academic support, but they wanted to make sure that that general support was there for them as well, to sustain them throughout the course. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. What we've got here on the next slide is what people are most worried about in terms of actually studying medicine. We all know it's a really demanding course, and it's really important to make sure that we are able to empower students to manage their own workload, to manage their work-life balance, and to manage stress and pressure. And one of the things that we've always designed in our student life and wellbeing service is to be anticipatory, is to make sure that we prepare you for those moments. We can't make those moments go away. That's part of your course. We know it's going to be stressful at times, but we try to make sure that we're preparing you for those particular moments. So if we could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we have a student life and wellbeing service, and in our service we are aiming to be friendly, supportive, and we offer a private space as well. So if you want to share problems or share concerns, we've got that private space for you. We offer practical information and advice and support, and also offer you the signposting. We are the kind of first stop for you, and we will always signpost you in another direction as to where you're going to be able to get the support and the assistance. We are using the support services at the University of Kent, which are extensive, so students have access to all of those services as well as what we're actually offering in KMMS, which is fantastic. Also, the way that we're operating, and we planned this even before COVID, which is lucky, we want to make sure that our student life and wellbeing service is accessible wherever you are. So whether you're at home, whether you are on placement, whether you're on campus, we want to make sure that you can always contact us. So we offer digital appointments, one-to-one sessions via Teams, for example, as well as making sure that we're accessible in terms of how you can contact us and those sort of things as well. We've got lots of information too on our student portal, which our current students are already referring to. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. As I mentioned at the very beginning, we want to prepare you for every step of the way. It will be stressful. It's an intense course. You're going to be experiencing things that could be difficult. You know, doing cadaveric dissection the first time that you see your dead body, it could be quite disturbing. So we want to make sure that we've actually prepared you for that and give you the time to reflect as well after you've had that experience. Meeting your first patients, what was that like? We're going to prepare you for that experience, and we will reflect with you after that experience as well. So we have gone through the course, we've identified the stress points within the course, and made sure that we've got support within the curriculum and within the student life and wellbeing service to really prepare you. Also, something that's very, very important within KMS, and we've talked before about the KMS values, we want to make sure that we are offering a warm, welcoming and inclusive environment. We have a lot of statements about equality, diversity and inclusion in our mission statement and our student life and wellbeing strategy, and that's genuinely something that is very, very important for us, and hopefully you've seen from some of the videos and from our students that they feel that that is coming across already. Thank you. If we could move on to the next one. So what can the service do for you? So this is the student life and wellbeing service, this should say. Obviously, general issues that you've got, if you're having a bad day or just feeling a bit wobbly, the service is there for you to come and talk to somebody. Also, any other general issues, concerns about your studies, we can refer you on to someone that can help. We also want to be proactive in terms of well-being. So we have a series of things that we're planning throughout your course to tie in with your course, but also to help you to be in charge of your own well-being. As a doctor, you have a responsibility to keep yourself fit and healthy so that you can be there to support your patients too. So your well-being is extremely important, and the General Medical Council also really stress this, that's absolutely essential part of being a doctor. We are setting up also a peer mentoring service, and that means that students will be able to contact other students who are going through, who have been through their sort of first years at university, to have another person to talk to really about what they're going through and what they're experiencing. Anything to do with placement support as well, you know, we realise that that's quite a different thing for people to be doing, and we go on our placements very early in the KMS course. Again, want to make sure that we're giving you the appropriate support and preparation to make sure that you're ready to do that. Now, on the next slide, we talk about the different specialist support available. Now, we're very lucky that within the medical school itself, we've got some specialists who can actually help you with some of your academic issues. So, for example, we have our digital education team. We have 2 colleagues, and again, our students this week have got to know them quite well. They are there to help you access the virtual learning environment, your e-portfolio, so all of those technical things. And we know that we're all working online. It doesn't necessarily mean that people are used to these sort of online platforms and that they're comfortable with them. So we've got a digital education team that are there to support you. We have a KMS librarian, and again, the beauty of KMS being a joint medical school is that you get access to resources not only at the University of Kent, not only at Canterbury Christchurch, but the NHS too, of course. So we have a librarian who has pulled together all of those resources and is making sure that you can have access to all of that. And not forgetting the important role of the personal academic tutor as well. So within KMS, you'll be allocated a personal academic tutor. That is somebody that is there to look at your personal development, is to support you with your academic progression as well. Any pastoral issues, they will be able to refer on to the Student Life and Wellbeing Service as well. So that's actually, all of that is available within KMMS. And I mentioned earlier that we refer to the specialist services at the University of Kent. Now that, for example, could include disability support, dyslexia support, support for care leavers, international students, and you can see on the circle some of the other things that we're offering. There's also academic skills support available. It's not everybody who's comfortable doing a presentation, for example, so if you feel that you need extra support and workshops on that, the university offers that too. In addition, careers services as well, you know, writing of CVs, how you're coping with applications, that sort of thing. And then we have library services and IT services at both universities. So, you know, again, one of the wonderful things about being a KMS student is that you are a member of both universities. I, as a KMS member of staff, I'm a member of both universities. And this means you get the best of both worlds. So you get to access services and facilities and resources at both universities, and you get a kind of wider selection. You are also going to be a member of both student unions too. So again, you can imagine the whole range of societies available to you. So you can just get an impression there of the wide-ranging support which is actually available for KMS students, and how we can refer you on. Again, anybody that does need have a special learning need, we want to make sure that you get the support right from the very beginning, so we will refer you to the specialists. Now, if you could go on to the next slide, please. We also really have this principle of working in partnership with our students. This year, we're all doing it for the first time, and it's really important for us to make sure that we can take feedback from students and to make sure that we can then improve our services and evaluate the services with them as partners as we're going along. It's a unique opportunity coming to a new medical school to be able to share in that experience, to actually be able to shape what is going on. For example, at the moment, we're setting up the MedSoc for the very first time. So this is a really exciting time. We want to make sure that we encourage a culture of openness and transparency. And those students that you saw earlier on, we told everybody in Welcome Week, please let us know if things aren't going the way that you want them to. Please let us know if there's extra support that we need to give you, if we need to improve the student portal, if there are things that you wanted to do. Already we've had feedback from students on a couple of things, and we've been able to put extra things in place to answer their questions. So we take this working in partnership very seriously. That is one of the principles of setting up KMMS, and the way that we know that we're going to be able to improve and continue to be a really fantastic medical school. So if we go to the next slide, please. This is just to show you here the 2 student unions. So as well as them being there to offer lots of societies, and you can see lots of lovely pictures of all sorts of different societies that you can join, they are also organising representation. So the student rep system, making sure that you get to feed into what's happening on the course, representing on some of the committees within KMMS. Also, University of Kent Union is there to offer advice and support. So we have the specialist student support services, but there's also a welfare section in Kent Union that is there to advise and support students if they want to. Both unions also offer volunteering opportunities, so another way of boosting your CV or getting involved in the community is there. And of course, there's events. And even in these strange times, there are events going on at both student unions. For example, there's an outdoor screening of La La Land coming up next week at one of the universities. So, you know, we always want to make sure that our students are connected to the activities that are going on at both universities. I've just got a final slide that will show you a couple of pictures of accommodation. We have students split between accommodation at Canterbury Christchurch and University of Kent. It doesn't matter where you choose to live, you'll be taught at both campuses, so it is completely your personal choice. And this is just to show some photos as well of the type of accommodation that is available for students. So really, I guess to conclude, I want to say that the Student Life and Wellbeing Service looks at supporting students through their journey, empowering students all the way that we can through their course and preparing them for those difficult transition points, but also making sure that we are really tying you into the student life at both universities so that you get the best of both worlds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And if any of you have got any questions about anything that Stephanie has just spoken about, you can send those in via YouTube and Facebook, and we'll get those answered. We have a few questions in already. Stephanie, we've had a question in from B. She's asked, is there any specific support / societies for graduate or mature medical students at KMMS?
Definitely societies for mature students, not for mature medical students at this point, because obviously we're the first cohort, but absolutely, yes, there are societies for pretty much everything. So no matter what your interest or your status or your background, there are societies. So also it's probably worth stating, and again, our admissions lead will talk about this, but we have a real split as well. I mean, we have a real range of students that come to us, so it's not everybody who is coming directly from school. And I think, again, that enriches the student body. So we do have a number of graduates who have joined the course as well. So you know, if you are a mature student, don't worry about that. You're certainly not going to be the only one.
We've also had a question about accessibility. If a student declares a learning need, will this affect their application? I guess that's more an application question, but maybe kind of going into a bit more depth about the support that the accessibility and the support that's there for students with learning needs.
So just to give an example, maybe you're interested in making an application, you have dyslexia, you know you have dyslexia. This will make no difference to your application at all. So it's better to declare this at an earlier stage. It won't affect your application. We don't look at that part. We're judging you on the rest of your application. But the important point about declaring this early is that if you are accepted, as soon as you are accepted, we can start to put in place the support that you require. We have something called an inclusive learning plan. So the University of Kent will set up an inclusive learning plan for you that will describe to your lecturers and teachers what you need to enable you to succeed. And that will be communicated to the people that need to know so that they are able to offer that support for you, again, so you can reach your full potential. So please don't hold back if it's something, if you have a specific need, it is certainly within your interest to make sure that you declare that at an early stage at application so that we can put the appropriate support in place for you.
And so just to clarify, Stephanie, that support can be bespoke to that individual's learning need?
Certainly. I mean, the individual will go through an assessment. So again, there are specialists at the University of Kent, and each inclusive learning plan will be written for the individual. So it's not to assume that everybody with dyslexia is going to get a certain package. We will really look at the individual. We also encourage students when they start KMS to go through a dyslexia screening process, for example, because a lot of people don't necessarily realise that they've got dyslexia, and once they are diagnosed, then we can actually help to put the support in place that they need. But I think the important thing to mention is that everybody is an individual. We want to refer them on to specialists so that they can really ascertain what needs to be done, what reasonable adjustments might need to be put in place to enable the student to succeed.
Personally, I found it really interesting that you identified as well that where those sort of pinch points of stress are going to be for students over the course of the year. Obviously, as with any course, but with KMMS in particular, with dealing with people's lives, a particularly stressful course. Where kind of are some of those pinch points that have been identified, and what can be done about it to help those students in need at that time?
Okay, well, I think an obvious first one is first going out on placement. It probably seems a little bit scary to be going out on placement so soon. We do that straight away in the first year within a few weeks at the university. So to give an example, our students will go out on their first placement the week of the 19th of October. So we make sure that we're supporting students all the way along in terms of the practicalities, but also make sure that they're ready in terms of what to expect, how to behave, and to give that reflection time also when they return. Another point of stress, of course, is assessments, examinations, those sort of things. People always get worried about those. Already we've started to do assessment workshops this week with our new students to explain how the assessments actually work, how students will be marked, how they will be judged, how they should prepare. But we'll also make sure that prior to the assessment happening, again, we will prepare students again and then give plenty of feedback as well so that they know how to improve next time if they indeed need to. So I think placements, assessments, key transition points. We tried to go through the course and look at those key transition points to see how we can support and enable students to reflect as well as they go along.
And Stephanie, because you're going to be sticking around with us for the final panel, but just a final question at this stage. Obviously, it's only been a week with that first cohort here. How vital was it to get across to that cohort that support is available, and has that first cohort maybe identified when that support is going to be needed for them?
Yeah, I mean, we've had one welcome week and then we've had our first week of teaching. So students are starting to kind of get into the swing of the course now. For us, I think it's so important to identify from the very beginning the support that's available. And also our academic colleagues have reiterated this. It's a strong person that seeks support. If there's a problem and you kind of ignore it, that's not going to help. What we want students to do, and we want to make this very clear from the start, is if you are identifying some problems, if you feel that you need the support, the best thing to do is to seek that support straight away so that you can then succeed and so that you can actually manage any anxieties, any extra academic support, for example, that you might need. Because if you leave that too late, it could have a detrimental effect on your course. So yes, what we wanted to state right from the very beginning is don't hold back. If you feel that you need that extra support in any way, whatever it is, whether it's an emotional problem, whether it's an academic problem, please do speak up straight away. And again, the culture that we are trying to build within KMS with the values of being brave and courageous and kind, we're also asking students to look out for their colleagues as well. So if they notice that their fellow classmates also are having some problems but are not seeking support, to encourage them to do so. It's part of a student's responsibility as a doctor as well, that if you're struggling, to please ask for help so that you can succeed. You need to be strong, you need to be able to be there for the patients as well. So it's all tied in with the responsibility of actually being a doctor and being an effective doctor, to recognise those points when you yourself need a bit of extra support.
Really important message there. Stephanie, if you stick around, because we'll come to you shortly with our final panel, where you're going to also be joined by Professor Holland and Dr. Chan. We're going to be able to answer any of those questions that have been coming in. If you have still got burning questions, do keep them coming in. We'll be back in just a sec.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to say I'm rejoined by Professor Holland, Dr. Chan and Stephanie for this, our final panel in the KMMS Virtual Open Day. We'll get those final burning questions answered. Do keep them coming in. If you've got any more personal questions regarding your entry requirements, send those in to admissions@kmms.ac.uk. Professor Holland, a question from Reese. He said, what is the medical licensing assessment at the end of year 5 and how does it work?
That's a really good question, Reese, and I'm impressed you're so up to date. So the medical licensing assessment is an assessment that's been brought in by the GMC in partnership with all medical schools in the United Kingdom. The intention is to make sure that every medical graduate who gets a medical degree and therefore has the right to apply for a license to practice from the GMC has passed a minimum safe threshold of knowledge and skills, abilities and aptitude. It's a combined exam, so it's made up of a written exam called an applied knowledge test and a OSCE style exam or a practical exam called the CPSA, Clinical and Professional Skills Assessment. It'll be brought in after much discussion between the GMC and all medical schools in the United Kingdom. It'll be brought in the 24-25 academic year. So our pioneer group of medical students will be one of the first cohorts to sit it.
And we're going to stick with you, Professor Holland, for just a final few course-related questions. I'm going to combine a couple that have been sent in from Leafy and from B, kind of more focused on, I guess, the flexibility of the course. B asking, how flexible is the intercalation year? For example, is it restricted to certain programs within Kent and Medway? And Leafy also asking, is there room for specialism with the course? So maybe, I guess, both of them just looking at how flexible the course is for maybe what they want to specifically do for going forward.
Yeah, so the intercalated degrees is one way in which students can enhance what they learn while they're at university above and beyond the core program. In order to graduate with a medical degree that's recognized across the whole of Europe currently, you have to have studied for 5,500 hours for your medical studies. Now, different countries chunk that up in different ways, but in the United Kingdom, it's made up of your undergraduate medical degree. And that 5,500 hours, it might sound like a lot, but when you spread it out over 5 years, 5 fairly intensive years, it does mean that the core program takes up a lot of what every medical student learns. Now, what we want at KMMS is for medical students to be able to go over and above that. And our options for that do include the intercalated year. Now, because we want our students to be able to really stretch themselves, really make sure that they leave with a value-added qualification in addition to their medical degree, we've made our intercalation year after third year. Now, because of the way university degrees are structured, that means that compared to some other medical schools where you're given the opportunity to intercalate after second year, by doing it after third year, that means that you can actually do a 1-year intercalated master's degree rather than an intercalated bachelor's degree. That's why we've done that. In terms of what topics and subjects that you can study, right now we're in a phase of very fast-moving development with colleagues and partners from across both universities to make sure that we have a wide range of opportunities for people to study. The first opportunity for KMMS students to do that will come after this year's first years finish their third year, so not until the 23-24 academic year. If by the time you get there, we don't have enough degrees or the sort of degree that you want to do, then you'll be able to, you can talk to us about what it is you want to do, and you'll be able to explore options to go to other medical degrees. Within the program itself, earlier on you heard Dr. Anna Ramito talking about SSCs and projects within the program, and those are the ways in which students can, without doing an intercalated degree and adding an extra year to their time at university, they can go above and beyond and explore other areas in more depth and specialisms.
So Holland, do students have to take placements just within the Canterbury area, or can they choose a hospital or GP nearer to where they live?
Not within the Canterbury area. We are Kent and Medway Medical School, and so our placements cover the whole of the county and unitary authorities of Kent and Medway. However, we have to quality assure placements, and we have to make sure that the placements that are provided are mapped to our program, a bit of education jargon, which just means that they teach something that ultimately we want them to teach and which we will assess. That means that, for example, outside of opportunities like electives, you can't, for example, do a placement in Inverness while studying as a KMMS student on the core placements. In terms of if you're living within Kent and Medway, then that's definitely something that we'll explore. But you do need to remember that one of the things that we want you to get through your placements is the opportunity to see different cultures, different communities, and in particular, different socioeconomic communities. So, for example, we wouldn't want you to do all of your placements in a very well-to-do postcode in, for example, Tunbridge Wells or Sevenoaks, and we want to make sure that you saw other areas of the county which have different socioeconomic populations.
Absolutely, a good range to choose from there. As you said, a good chance to experience those different areas. Dr. Chan, as ever, we got loads of questions coming in about admissions. And just to say to those of you watching with more personal questions, I know Dr. Chan is kind of going to be sticking around via Teams to answer those. And our friends at KMMS will put the details up with how to access that on the YouTube or Facebook page. A few questions coming in, though, Dr. Chan, now some more broader questions. Ashley has asked, do you consider UCAT as part of the application, and if so, what is the cutoff score? I think we might have covered this earlier on, but just in case Ashley's just joined us since.
Ashley, yes, it's all on our webpage in the entry requirements 2021. There is a UCAT threshold that's operated at stage 2 of our selection process. You have to meet that threshold in order to progress to stage 2B, which is contextualization. Last year, the score was 2420, which was the 40th centile. That is not the lowest UCAT threshold in the country, but certainly within the lowest 3. We don't guarantee to operate exactly the same threshold this year. I understand that there are many, many, many more people sitting UCAT this year than last year, so we'll have to see what the situation is.
And Dr. Chan, staying with you, a question from Krishna. Is EPQ accepted as a qualification?
We value the EPQ. We think it's a very good thing for you, for A-level students to do in order to broaden their outlook and also to test their synoptic skills and actually bringing evidence together to produce a long-form written output. It does not form part of our conditional offer.
And just finally, Dr. Chan, can a postgraduate applicant compensate an average UCAT score with other academic achievements and relevant work experiences?
That's not actually the way our selection process works. If you pass through that stage 2A of achieving the UCAT threshold, then we will go on to the next stage, which for postgraduates is scoring and possibly the online SJT.
Fantastic. As I said, anyone with more personal questions can follow after this event is finished. Stephanie, just a few more support and wellbeing questions. Is there anything students can do in terms of preparing themselves before coming onto the course and maybe getting themselves ready for what is quite an intense course and knowing who to go to?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've been given a place and you've accepted, I think that mental preparation is actually really important. I mean, you'll hear if there's any academic preparation that you need to do, and people want to get reading lists and all that sort of thing, all sorts of things in advance. But I think what's really important is to think about yourself. We talked about the stress points of the course. What do you think is going to be difficult for you? What do you think are going to be the challenges? How are you going to cope with that? What are your strategies as well? And I think just thinking about that yourself, reflecting and talking things through with someone as well. Maybe someone who's already been to medical school, or other students, it doesn't matter what course, just to think about that, because one of the huge transition points for most people is actually leaving home. So, regardless of the course you're doing, there is that very big step where a lot of people will be leaving home, going to live elsewhere. You need to be able to look after yourself. So the basics, like, can you cook a meal? Can you stick to a budget, a food budget? Can you feed yourself properly? Are you going to make sure that you're preparing nutritious food for yourself? Are you getting enough sleep? All of those sort of things. So yes, university courses have their pressures. You've got the social life as well, but it's good to reflect on how you are going to look after yourself as a student to be able to succeed. When you are well, you're going to succeed and you're going to do well. And I think it's thinking holistically as well, not just about being able to eat well and sleep well, but also thinking about how you're going to cope with some of these difficult things that come up. I think also, to prepare yourself, it's working out what support is available already at the university or within the medical school, and finding out that in advance as well, so where there are sources that you can call on should you need to. Most universities have really good support services and have a good infrastructure that's there to help you to succeed. So I think making sure that you're aware of what is actually available and having thought through where you think you might actually need that support to.
And just on that last point, can prospective students reach out to KMMS and obviously the two unions that you mentioned before coming regarding that support and what to kind of prepare themselves for?
I mean, before coming, we have, we have our inquiries email. A lot of people already be in contact with us about many questions. So, whether your question is to do with, the entry requirements, or whether it's to do with some special support need that you think you're going to need, please do let us know in advance, and we will make sure that we direct that in the right way. So I think any queries or concerns or worries that you've got before you go, just make sure that we're aware of them, and we will try to respond to you and to put you in contact with the appropriate people. Clearly, until you're a registered student, you haven't got access to all of those support services, with the exception, as I said, of people who might need a special learning support, and they've declared that in their UCAS application. So as soon as you actually get an acceptance at that point, where you get access to the student support services, that will actually start to put, for example, the inclusive learning plans in place for you.
Professor Holland, let's come over to you to just wrap things up. Tell us a little bit, just finally, what is so special about KMMS?
Oh, that's an opportunity to talk for the rest of the day. But in terms of wrapping up comments, 2 years ago when I was made Foundation Dean, I started introducing myself to friends and colleagues for events concerning the medical school as being grateful for having the best job in the world. Now that our first cohort of students have arrived, I still think that it's been tough and grueling, more so with COVID. But now that the students are actually with us and part of the journey with us and starting to get involved in that creation of a medical school, there's a new energy, there's a new vigor that's really energized us after the past few months of what's been a pretty grueling road to open. The things that really make the KMMS better, the partnership of the two universities, the support that we have from across the wider NHS of all of Kent and Medway. One of the local trust chief executives tells me regularly that the medical school is the single most important health and social care initiative in the county. And the support that we get both from the general citizens of Kent and our very wonderful benefactors who supported so many scholarships, grants and bursaries for our students.
I think that's a great place to end on, a chance for prospective students to be at the forefront of the county's medical story. Professor Holland, Dr. Chan and Stephanie, thank you all very much, as well as a big thank you to all of our other panellists who've joined in today for the KMMS Virtual Open Day. If you want to find out more, you can of course go to www.kmms.ac.uk or email admissions@kmms.ac.uk, and of course you can follow the school with the handle KMMS Med School on social media. But that's all from me. Thank you all for watching today and wishing you all the best with your applications, and we hope to see you here in the not too distant future. Goodbye.
Hello, I'm Professor Chris Holland. I'm the founding Dean of Kenton Medway Medical School, and I can't tell you how exciting it is to welcome the pioneer group of medical students to KMMS. Right from the outset of planning your programme, one of the things that we wanted to do was to be innovative, to make sure that we were preparing you to be 21st century medical graduates and practitioners.
My name is Rama Tirunamachandran. I'm Vice Chancellor and Principal of Canterbury Christchurch University, and it's my great pleasure to welcome our founding cohort of Kenton Medway Medical School students, the culmination of 7 years of hard work since I came to Canterbury and set out on a mission to establish a medical school. It was clear to me that Kent was the county, the largest county in the country, without its own standalone medical school.
I'm Karen Cox and I'm the Vice-Chancellor at the University of Kent, and it is a huge pleasure to welcome our founding students. It's so important for our county, it's so important for our nation that we're generating the next generation of medical doctors.
We've already built a strong community here involving 2 universities, their student unions, the people and citizens of Kenton Medway, as well as the NHS and all the professional groups therein. One of the most important skills for a 21st century doctor is the ability to communicate well with their patients and with the interprofessional team. And here Kenton Medway Medical School has really taken the opportunity to innovate, and we've built the first high-fidelity general practice simulation suite in the county.
Working across the University of Kent and Canterbury Christchurch University and with our NHS partners, we're absolutely delighted that we've got to this point. We've been able to create a medical school for the County of Kent. We've got expertise across being able to deliver clinical learning, scientific expertise.
An important part of the Canterbury Christchurch University contribution is the fact that students will study side by side with 3,000 plus health students who are studying from a range of health disciplines, from nursing, midwifery, physiotherapy, all the way through to allied health professional subjects. Together with the University of Kent's strengths in biomedicine and biomedical sciences and the research strengths, we provide a complementary platform for the medical school to flourish.
2 years ago, when I was appointed as founding Dean for KMMS, I think it's safe to say that none of us expected that the medical school would open under these circumstances. And one of the things that's really helped us have been our values that have really kept us focused on being innovative and brave. As a result, we have one of the most exciting medical student programs in the country. The support, input and advice that we've had from our contingency medical school, Brighton and Sussex Medical School, and of course we couldn't have done this without the support of the NHS across Kenton Medway, who've been invaluable in supporting KMMS over the past 2 years and continuing to do so until our first graduates practice hopefully remaining in Kenton Medway.
One of the ultimate objectives and goals of the medical school is to ensure that we have a positive contribution and impact on the health and well-being of the population of Kenton Medway.
And we're making a real difference every day to people's lives. So thank you very much for the support that we've had already, and we look forward to continued support into the future.